Hi there and welcome. I'm Trevor Koenig with Worthy Goals Consulting. I want to talk to you today about guilt and shame, what they are and what the differences are. So let's start with guilt. Many times I'll be talking to people and they're dealing with feelings of guilt. And so let's start right there, because first of all, guilt is not an emotion. So you can't feel guilt. What guilt is based on an outside action. And you either are guilty or you are not guilty. If you've lied to somebody, you'd be guilty of lying. Now that's only a problem if you think that lying is unacceptable, which most of us agree is. But if you've lied to somebody, then you definitely are guilty of lying. Nobody has to know you're even guilty yet. You know you're guilty. If you don't get caught, you don't feel guilty, you are guilty. But what you may feel shame. How does shame work with this? Well, guilt is an exterior judgment. It can be from society or from ourselves for breaking an agreed upon moral code or rule, or maybe a rule such as speeding or something like that. But they're definitely all based off of action. So being guilty is the result of an action. Shame, on the other hand, is the judgment of that guilt. So you may be guilty of stealing something. Now, to settle your guilt, you could give it back or pay for it. You'd no longer be guilty. But the fact of the matter is, in your own mind, can you accept that you were a thief or that you stole something? Now, people make mistakes. There's all kinds of ways to look at things, but shame comes from my judgment of myself and of my behaviors. So if I see myself as a person who would not steal, and yet I stole something, I'm going to feel shame because my actions did not match my code, my moral code, my acceptable code. So right away, shame is an emotion, guilt is a feeling, guilt is an action. So you can't feel guilt. You either are guilty or you're not. You can feel shame. The other interesting part about shame, though, is sometimes you can feel shame for something that you haven't even done wrong. And that's where our paradigms or our belief systems come into play. Sometimes we will feel shame for things that are based off of a belief that we may not even agree with consciously, but subconsciously it's been a belief system that has always been part of me. So that's where shame is settled by, we talk about guilt is settled by making the action right. And shame is settled by forgiveness, not of others and not by others. Shame is about forgiving yourself. So you have to ask yourself, what's the truth? Am I a terrible person? Am I a shameful, despicable human being? Or did I maybe not live up to my codes and I made a mistake? Can I live that? Can I accept it? And one of the best tools that I know of for being able to forgive yourself is to start looking at, what would you say to somebody who came to you with the same question? Would you tell them that they were a despicable human being that should never be forgiven? Or would you try to explain to them that, people make mistakes, we're human beings, we're learning and growing. You could forgive that person for that discretion or digression, I guess. And the question is, if I could forgive you for the same behavior, why don't I forgive myself? What's the truth? Why should I not forgive myself? Am I better than you? Well, clearly that's not the case. We're all human beings. So we're all doing the best we can. And we make lots of mistakes along the way. But none of those things are unforgivable. So there are two ways to deal with guilt and shame. Guilt is dealt with by making it right. Shame is dealt with by forgiving yourself for having done what you did. So when you hear somebody say, I feel guilty, you can explain what I just explained to you. Guilty is not a feeling. Guilty is a fact. Or if you're guilty, you're factually guilty. If you're not guilty, also a fact. There's no gray area with guilt. You either are or are not guilty. Shame is an internal judgment of the guilt or an internal judgment of yourself based off of a belief system. Both of them are only taken care of through forgiveness. And nobody can forgive you to take away the shame. If you've done something wrong to me and I tell you that I forgive you, it doesn't fix your shame. Only you can fix your shame problem. And it's only through forgiving yourself and giving yourself the same respect and love that you would give to one of your children who made a mistake. So oftentimes I'll say, if I could treat myself as well as I would treat a stranger, I might be nicer to myself. So something to ponder and think about. But now you have some clarity between guilt and shame. Have a great day. Thank you.